talk to Steven Wagner of Kane Sport, where Steven, in Eugene, they're just waking up, but down in Coral Gables, they're already leaving campus, and it sounds like Miami is picking up some momentum. Let's talk about elite running back Jay Lamar. He was on campus this weekend. What are you hearing?
Miami, I think, is in great shape for Jay Lamar after this last weekend. We came into the visit weekend kind of feeling like the Hurricanes were a little bit of a dark horse with probably Georgia and Clemson, maybe kind of, some of the more likely landing destinations. I'm coming out of this visit weekend feeling really, really good about the job that Miami has done with Lamar. The Hurricanes have made an absolutely massive push for him. They really threw everything they could at him this weekend. He has been one of the top priorities on their board this spring. He's the number 2 running back on their board, only behind Derek Cooper. He is an absolute must-get priority in Miami. I think the Hurricanes are in excellent position coming off of this visit. I'm really excited to see, kind of what happens here over the next couple of weeks, because he is planning on making a decision June 25th, and I think that Miami is very, very definitely going to be one of those finalists. It would not shock me if he ended up a Hurricane.
Yeah, and we know they are looking to load up on backs this cycle, so that would be a huge one. Speaking of big names on campus, we have more. It was really intriguing to see 6'6" Cali tight end Israel Briggs on campus, and it sounds like Miami made a move with him as well.
I definitely think so. So going into the visit, LSU had a very slight edge for Briggs, but the Hurricanes have been right there this entire time. Briggs has been one of the top tight ends on Miami's board this spring. He's the number 1 flex tight end on their board. They're hoping to go along with an inline guy or maybe a jumbo guy, kind of like Hezzy Kent. But the Hurricanes, I entered an RPM for them shortly after he decommitted from Arizona State because Miami did lead. LSU was able to take the lead last weekend. I'm feeling confident again about the Hurricanes coming out of this weekend. He's been kind of unclear about, what his timeline could look like. He said that he's kind of, just kind of waiting for the right moment to go ahead and pull the trigger. But man, I think it's really hard not to feel optimistic about the Hurricanes. If you're a Miami fan, I think Miami is absolutely right there. I still feel good about that RPM that I entered for him. I really think that there's a very good chance he ends up a Hurricane.
Speaking of ending up a Hurricane, wide receiver Calvin Russell, the local standout, was finally on campus in Miami this weekend after making visits all across the country. Can they keep Calvin Russell home? And who do you see right now is the biggest competition?
Yeah, so that's kind of been the $1 million question is, can Miami keep Calvin Russell home? Because throughout his recruitment this spring, it seems like at different points, we've heard all of these different teams trending for Calvin Russell except Miami. The Hurricanes have absolutely been right there this entire time. They've been a very consistent presence. They have excellent relationships with him. Kevin Beard, Miami's receivers coach, went to college with Calvin Russell's mother. His mother also went to college with Dennis Smith, one of the top recruiting staffers on Miami's staff. But right now, I'm not really certain if the Hurricanes will be able to pull this off in the short term. Now, he's going to commit on July 5th. I think that this recruitment is going to go until signing day no matter what. But the team that I'm actually hearing the most mentioned for Calvin Russell right now is LSU. I think the Tigers are a very, very big threat for Calvin Russell. It would not surprise me at all if he ends up a Tiger July 5th, but I've had multiple people tell me that they know this recruitment will not be over until the pen hits paper on signing day. And Miami is going to keep pushing and treating him like the number 1 receiver in America, regardless of where he announces on July 5th.
Speaking of announcing, another local star, defensive lineman James Johnson, one of the top defensive linemen in America, the top in the state of Florida, is set to decide on June 28th. Less than 2 weeks away, the top D lineman in the state is going to commit to, we're not sure yet, but do you think Miami has a good chance to hold him in state?
I think Miami has an extremely good chance to hold him in state. Miami wasn't one of the teams that I really heard mentioned a ton for him. over the last couple of weeks leading up to his official visit until he actually went on that OV. And ever since then, I've heard Miami be spoken of in a very, very positive light. I think there's a lot of optimism on both sides about Miami. I spoke with someone after his official visit to Miami last weekend that said that, they were kind of getting a little bit of a Miami vibe, and that they really felt like the Hurricanes were in a good position for Johnson coming off of that visit. I definitely expect Miami to be one of the finalists, but Georgia was a team that was absolutely mentioned a lot. He's already visited the Bulldogs, and I do think that Kirby Smart and what they've built in Athens absolutely has a ton of appeal to a kid like James Johnson. Right now, I'm kind of 50-50 between Miami and someone else. It's a coin flip between Miami and other, I think, for James Johnson. Could he end up a Hurricane? Absolutely. In fact, I think that there's a very, very real chance that he ends up in Coral Gables. But, am I ready to put an RPM on it or anything like that? Definitely not. And since there still are 2 weeks left, there's still time for this recruitment to have a couple more twists or turns here. There's enough time left for one school to make a significant last-second push if they really wanted to, but we'll see who he ends up picking on June 28th.
All right. Well, Stephen Wagner of Kane Sport, you're going to be busy all afternoon. So, guys, if you want more Miami updates, go check out Kane Sport. Appreciate you stopping by this live edition of the Inside Scoop.
Thanks, Josh.